Good morning, everyone, and welcome to today's LinkedIn Live. I'm very happy to have with us today Sandeep Kalra, who is the CEO of Persistent Systems. He also serves on its board as an executive director. He's been there since early, or actually late 2020. So I guess you knew what you were getting into by late 2020. And his focus has really been on transforming the company from sort of niche technology player into a digital transformation partner and really strengthening their global brand. Welcome, Sandeep. Are you joining today from Basking Ridge?
Yes. First of all, Karen, thank you for having me here. And I've been with Persistence since April of 2019, becoming the CEO in October 2020.
All right. Thank you for that. So, maybe for those who aren't familiar, you could tell us a little bit about the services that Persistent provides and maybe a short history of the company.
Sure. So I'll start with the history first, Karen. Persistent was founded by our founder, Anand Deshpande, who also serves today as our executive chairman.
Mm.
Came to the US for doing his PhD in computer science, and he had a short stint with HP Labs after that. He returned to India in 1990, and that's where he became an entrepreneur starting the company. Initially, the firm operated as a boutique, developing products for the likes of bigger software product companies here in the US. In late 1990s, early 2020, in early 2000s, the firm had leading venture capitalists, including Norwest Ventures and Gabriel Ventures, invest in the firm. The firm, accelerated its journey, went public in 2010, and also diversified from doing product engineering to going into enterprises, more specifically banking, financial services, and healthcare life sciences, doing product, platform, application development for them. Fast forward to 2020, Anand stepped back from day-to-day operations and is today the executive chairman. And I have become the CEO since 2020 October. In the last 3 to 4 years, we have accelerated our journey. Today, we are positioned as a leader in digital engineering and enterprise modernization. What it means in very simple terms is, on one side, we work with the ISVs, the independent software vendors, developing products and platforms, whether they are SaaS platforms or otherwise, and also taking the same tenets to the enterprises, because today every financial services firm, every healthcare firm wants to be or look like, feel like a fintech and a health tech, whether you are a
Yeah,
large bank, large insurance company, large provider, and so on. So that's
yeah,
where we are positioned today. Today, we are among the highest growth company in our sector, and that's partly also because of what happened in COVID. There's a lot of digital transformation initiatives that was
of
spawned off,
course.
and that is the journey for the longer run. Today, we are roughly about $1 billion in revenue and $4.6 billion in market cap. So that's where we are.
Terrific. Well, that's quite a journey, and it sounds like you joined at an opportune time. Your vision for the organization, as I understand it, as I read, is to be an industry leading organization with growth mindset. So always looking forward, yet really focused on this deep, rich legacy that you have, wanting to foster creativity, collaboration, and diversity. So I'm curious, you're a very big company, right? You're over 20,000 employees globally, and you're growing, as you say, most rapid in your sector. How do you as the CEO lead an organization this large and this diverse without sacrificing some of these company culture and values?
Right. So that is the most interesting part of running a large services organization.
Right?
And if I look at it, historically, the company was started by our founder. It had a very rich history in terms of innovation, in terms of technology talent, and a very good reputation in terms of employee friendliness, world-class governance, and so on. So what I inherited was a fairly strong organization, a fairly strong culture, and my job was to accelerate the growth while keeping the ethos, as you rightly said, intact and build on it. And most interesting part was, as we were embarking on this journey, we had COVID come in, and with COVID came the various tenets of work from anywhere. So people, the way they saw work earlier, kind of changed, and all of a sudden we became a full team of virtual, 20,000 or thereabouts folks working from wherever we were. Now, in this time, we also grew significantly. So we have gone in the last 3 years from 10,500 to 22,600 employees, growing our revenues, growing our customer base, growing the employee base globally. So in this, the most important thing for me was to take the people together in this journey in an environment which is not the normal environment, where you get to meet people in person. So we have, over the last several years, undertaken several initiatives, whether it is reinforcing our culture. So we have gone down to the grassroots, involved our people, even though they may be virtual or coming to office in a few days. We have also embarked on initiatives such as covering 80% of our employees in our employee stock option plan. And this was very important because as we came out of the COVID times, we were growing very rapidly. With the rapid growth, we saw a good amount of wealth creation for our investors, and our team members also wanted to partake in this. And I'm very proud to say our ESOP plan, the employee stock option plan, for example, is among the most rich in terms of employee participation. Last but not the least, when you have to take a company forward with so many employees, you need a common goal. You need to bring everyone together and stitch a common goal with them in terms of our common aspiration. So about 3 years back, we had put our stake in the ground along with our leadership and our team members that we were about a $500 million organization. We want to be about $1 billion organization in 4 years. That became a rallying cry with everyone taking a piece of it and owning it to be able to deliver it. And so that has been one of the major ethos. Compare it to, let's say, Mahatma Gandhi in India. Wherever there has been some kind of a revolution, there has been a leader who has been able to corral people together. So that's the small learning that we had, and we tried to take people along. And we have been successful.
Yes. There's nothing better than a unifying vision that people all have a stake in, and you've managed to give them both a value stake as well as a economic stake through that ESOP plan. So it's a wonderful story. So I just want to make sure you said you've doubled the number of employees in just the past few years.
Yes. So about 3.5 years back, we were
Jeez.
10,500 employees. Today we are
Yeah.
22,600 employees. We were
Yeah.
$500 million in revenue. We are $1 billion in revenue.
Yeah, that's amazing. I'm thinking just about the scope of trying to hire and onboard that number of employees. So congrats to you and your team for getting that done. So you just hit this $1 billion milestone, right? The big goal, your $1 billion in annualized revenue. Can you talk a little bit about your path to get there? I mean, clearly you hired the people to get it done. How did you expand the work to bring in that amount of revenue?
Sure. So when I came in, as I said before, so the company had fairly strong culture, fairly strong
Mhm.
capabilities. It was about looking at that point in time, the tea leaves in terms of the forward-looking technologies, the forward-looking business imperatives of our customers, keeping the customer in the center, thinking about if we were to be more meaningful to our customers, what does it mean? What does it take for us to become more relevant to them and their own businesses? How do we help our customers deliver better to their customers? So if we looked at that lens, there were certain technology trends. We identified our big bets based on those technology trends, whether it was cloud, whether it was data, AI, whether it was even during the COVID times, people working remotely meant cybersecurity was a very big imperative. So we identified the trends. Some of these we doubled down organically. Some of these, and when I say organically, we brought in leaders from outside to complement our leadership team and become more smarter there. And some places we even went in with tuck-in acquisitions as a part of our strategy to bring in capabilities to accelerate our journeys. So over the last 8 to 10 quarters, we have acquired about 7 companies, small, right from $2.5 million in revenues to about $48 million in revenues, but significant capabilities to be able to take that to our customer landscape. So that's one aspect. Second aspect is, as I talked about, bringing in the right leadership wherever we had white spaces, and doubling down on also creating our own learning and development capabilities at scale, because we are in the technology business and it moves very rapidly. So we have invested in building a fairly strong learning development organization with professional trainers, tying it up with our hyperscaler partnerships, the 5 leading partnerships, the IBM, the Amazon, Microsoft, Google, and Salesforce partnerships that we have, both for go to market and for training our teams to be able to deliver to the latest technology stacks from them. And last but not the least, we imbibe these technologies in our own side, showcasing it to our customers how we could embark on our own growth, our own digital transformation, and how we could bring that to bear for them. So those are the kind of things that we did.
Yeah, wonderful. So I'd like to talk a little more about the acquisitions that you've done. So as you say, they weren't giant acquisitions, but a good number of them, seven or so. How do you ensure that you get the value from the deal? I know oftentimes I see a lot of people getting rewarded for making the deal, but not so much for making the deal work. And as I'm sure you know, the vast majority of acquisitions fail to deliver on the promise from the deal. So how did you make that happen in a way that was successful?
Right. So, Karen, you are absolutely right in saying this. A vast majority of acquisitions fail because they're not necessarily planned well, and the integration becomes a big issue, and the aspirations of people, etc., and so on. So, there are some learnings one has from the past and from learnings from the others. But let me talk to you about our journey. The way we went about our M&A strategy was, as I said, we identified the big bets based on the forward-looking trends we were seeing. Based on these big bets, for example, if it was cloud, we looked at where we wanted to reinforce our capabilities. Let's say we wanted to reinforce our capabilities in Microsoft and Google Cloud. We had a fairly strong AWS practice. Within that, we looked at the partners that were the, you know, forward-looking partners, good capabilities at a size that we could have integrated and so on. And we proactively approached them. So we proactively approached the founders and management teams of these companies and socialized the idea of being a part of Persistent, coming together and so on. So we spent time in building these relationships. So we, and through this meetings and building these relationships, we could also see the cultural fit, whether there was a good cultural fit between the two organizations, whether we can give the people coming in, if this was to go through, the right career path with our organization, the right leadership role for their founders, their senior managers, and for their employees, good home for the longer run. So this was a process that we followed. It was not about participating in companies that were going through bid processes. It was proactive. It was building these relationships based on the capabilities we wanted to bring. And when we consumed these transactions, we could give the people, for example, we formed a Microsoft business unit and we made one of the incoming leaders the head of that. Similarly, for Google business unit, we made the head of one of our acquired companies, the founder of that, the head for Google business unit, even giving him what we were doing in the area. So it was a very well planned activity, and I'm very glad to say m- most, I would rather say all of our acquisitions have so far panned out very well, and we have now a fairly healthy playbook of how to make it work.
Excellent.
That-
Yeah.
that-
Yeah, so that playbook, right, is what it takes. I really hear your background in both sales and strategy coming through as you talk, right? The importance of sort of this big picture and of developing relationships that are good for the long term, which is what makes a successful sales executive as well. So
yeah.
I hear that. So you talked about these big bets. What does the landscape look like for software development and digital engineering as we look forward from 2023?
Yeah. So as we look forward, look, there are a few trends that started in the COVID times. So we saw the digital acceleration in enterprises. Yeah, there are macro headwinds, but a number of those initiatives are long range initiatives. So I do think that that train has left the station. People will definitely be doing their digital transformation and taking it at different paces. Now there's a bunch of other things that are happening in the cloud space. A lot of people think that cloud is about lifting, shifting, migrating applications and data to the cloud, but the hyperscalers are working far beyond that. So whether you look at an AWS, you look at a Microsoft, you look at Google, they have industry solutions that they're working on. That is their way of expanding their own addressable market. And for people like us, we have to understand where these hyperscalers are going, where similar other technology companies that are focused in industry verticals are trying to drive their own TAM. And if we look at that, there is plays in industries like healthcare, in financial services, which are going to be focused plays from each of these hyperscalers and similar technology companies. So that is one thing that we are betting on in terms of aligning with a number of these. And that's where even our acquisition strategy has made us even more relevant in that ecosystem. Now, the second trend that we are seeing is spend on things like cybersecurity is here to stay for
Yes.
the next several years. And a number of us are today working from anywhere. And as travel opens up, even from areas where we may not have a secure access and so on and so forth. So cybersecurity definitely is going to be there. This is also combined with the fact that there are many, things that are happening because of what is happening in Russia, Ukraine. There would be some, state or nation players also active in the cyberspace and so on. So there are trends like that on the cloud, cybersecurity, and others, where with a sharp focus, there's enough to be done and more. So we are focusing now on some of these big bets. We have also, now that we have reached the $1 billion, mark, we brought our team together. We have put a stake in the ground to say we want to be a $2 billion organization over the next 4 years, focusing on a few of these things, and we'll take it from there.
Yeah, that was my next question is how do you set, right? What's the next big marker for you? So $2 billion is is an aggressive goal. You've just shown that you have the capability of doubling a company, so that's working in your favor. But what's underneath that $2 billion? That's, I mean, it's a great sort of hyper goal.
Sure.
Do you have sub goals underneath that you could share
Right.
with us?
So what we did was we early in the year we brought together 300 of our senior most managers together, and we said let's look out 4 years. If we want to be a $2 billion organization, and the company has focus on, let's say, a few verticals like the technology companies, banking, financial services, healthcare, life sciences, and then we have service lines. So each of the business leaders has their own aspiration, like a mini CEO in the company. So we asked them to paint the picture for themselves. Where do they want to see themselves in this journey? And so it becomes a collective goal. It again becomes a shared goal where everyone is contributing towards a bigger picture. And if it's like a Mona Lisa picture into a jigsaw puzzle, everyone is bringing their own and bringing their own with their own aspirations. So we have put the stake in the ground. We have defined which verticals we want to focus on, what service lines we want to focus on, what size and shape we want to see, what are the other inorganic initiatives we need to do to support this journey,
Yes.
what geographies should we be focusing on. So for example, Europe today is 9% for us. We want it to be between 12 to 15% of our $2 billion. So in 4 years, that means Europe has to disproportionately grow compared to our own footprint. So what does that mean organically? What does that mean inorganically? So there's a lot of thinking that has gone behind putting our ambition, and we are on that journey. And I'm sure there's a lot of shared goals within the company to be able to make it work.
Yes. And it sounds like everyone can see the part they play in making that happen. Hopefully, those managers, I'm sure they have gone back and sort of spread that so that everyone can see the part they play. That's terrific. So, your tagline for your business is See Beyond, Rise Above, which I thought was interesting. What does that mean, see beyond and rise above?
Right. So if you look at see beyond, rise above, it can mean different things to different people. But
Mhm.
let me put it very simply. So it's basically not just looking at the current set of things that you have to do, whether you're solving a business problem for a customer, whether you are trying to take your own role within the company or the company forward. It is about proactively looking beyond the obvious. It is about planning for the future, knowing what you know, and also going a step beyond and enabling your customers. For example, when we talk about this in our customers, this thing, it's not just about solving their current problem, but working with them to make sure they are able to deliver more value to their customers so that they become more competitive in their landscape, far beyond what is being told to us as an obvious. So that is, in a nutshell, the thing.
Great. See beyond. Terrific. So I'd like to talk about you for a moment. We've talked about the company quite a bit. So the tagline for your business is See Beyond, Rise Above. The tagline for my business, my consulting business, is Up and to the Right, because that's the spot on the 2x2 matrix where we always want to be, is in that upper right hand corner of the matrix. Was there a moment in your career when you knew that you'd be successful, when you were sort of moving directionally correct up to that spot?
Right. So let me answer it slightly differently. Let me tell you a little bit about myself, my
Please.
own personal,
Yeah.
background, and then I'll stitch it up for you. So my parents are from what was called the erstwhile, United India. It's now
Mhm.
the part of it is in Pakistan. So they were refugees into India when the partition happened way back in 1947. So they were kind of immigrants. They had lost everything in Pakistan, and so on. In that, and so they built their lives ground up. And so my upbringing was very humble with a very middle class family where my parents made sure that I was given the best of the education. So the first pivot in my life happened when I went to the best business school in India, which is called Indian Institute of Management, Calcutta, which is equivalent of a Harvard year. The learning out there, you know, far, you know, was far above what I had learned so far in life because the peer set was very good. And
Yes.
that laid the foundation. It's like you go to a good management school, you learn from each other and so on. And from there on, I, started working in India. And over a period of time, I came to the US. So I'm a first generation immigrant here. And when you are a first generation immigrant here, everyone who has been there comes with two bags. And that is where you start your journey. And so behind all this, what it gives you in your mind is there's no sense of entitlement. You
Mm.
earn your bread, you earn your career path. And so with time, I worked my way through. I used to work for a bigger peer of Persistent earlier. I worked, I, had a good successful run in sales. Then I started geographies like, Latin America. So I've started, operations in Brazil, Argentina, Mexico on one side, and Canada on the other.
Mhm.
Very good exposures. And then I went to a private equity organization. It was a smaller organization, but we had a very successful exit with a company called Harman International, acquiring this company for $835 million. That was the aha moment for me because I was a number two in that company. And it kind of, the learning that I went through in this whole process was fairly good. It basically stitched together all I had been doing in my earlier
Mhm.
years in a sales role, in starting new geographies. This was a full company where I was the number two. And, I'd gone through a successful exit. From there on, I basically delivered to the goals, and over a period of time, that company got acquired by Samsung, and I joined Persistent. So today, I'm living whatever I have learned, and I've been very, fortunate to work with some very, very good leaders in the industry. Whether it is, Vineet Nair at HCL Technologies, where I used to work earlier, Romesh Wadhwani at Symphony Technology Group, Dinesh Paliwal at Harman, and in my current role, Anand Deshpande, and all of these are iconic leaders to learn with. So
Yes.
it has been a journey, and if I may say so, if you follow any of the US sports, I have three daughters, and all of them are in gymnastics at different levels. So it's like every year you're learning a new skill, you're moving
Right.
up a level, and when you reach the level 10, and then maybe someday if you go to Olympics, it's basically the culmination of all what you learned. So many different pivots, but a good journey so far.
Yes, thank you for sharing all of that with us. I'm always fascinated, but sort of where people end up, at least so far, because I think mostly we don't know, right? When we're in our early stages of our career, we may have aspirations, but if you just keep adding the skills, right, doing your best, and as you say, learning from the best, which I think also has a lot to do with networking. You mentioned your peers in school. It all adds up to your career. And congratulations on putting all those pieces in place and taking advantages of the opportunities that you created through your work.
Thank you.
And we'll look for your daughters in the Olympics coming up. So
Thank you.
wonderful. Well, thank you so much for taking time to speak with us today. Really appreciate it, and wishing you and your colleagues at Persistent Systems all the best. Thanks.
Thank you. It was a pleasure talking to you.
Take care.